Hey, Canucks fans. Welcome to the line change. Now, if you recall, back in August, it was said by the Athletics' Thomas Drance that the Vancouver Canucks had quote unquote cooled on Jack Roslovic and were no longer as interested in him as they may have once been. Now, we have a tweet here from Thomas Drance basically talking about that. We have it right here. Him basically saying, hearing the Canucks have cooled off on pursuing late summer UFA Jack Roslovic, the club wants a full-time center upgrade and doesn't see that player available in the UFA bargain bin. It's going to take a trade. Now, as I mentioned, this was the tweet from Thomas Drance way back on August 19th. As you can see, 7:52 a.m. Now, the reason I bring this up is, well, it looks as though things have changed since the 19th of August, and that the Canucks very well may not be completely out of the Jack Roslovic sweepstakes. Now, obviously, there's been a lot of talk about the Maple Leafs really wanting Roslovic and pursuing him intently, to the point where they are willing to, ship out contracts in order to free up cap space to sign him to a major deal. Now, everyone knows that also Patrick Allvin likes his September signings. After all, the last 2 years, now Allvin has made what turned out to be some pretty big signings in the month of September or right around training camp. First, it was Pius Suter 2 Septembers ago, or, well, technically it was late August, but you guys get what I'm getting at there. So technically 2 years ago, it was Pius Suter, and then just last year, it was Kevin Lankinen. And both of those signings turned out to be great signings for the Vancouver Canucks and actually turned out to be beneficial for said players. As, obviously Pius Suter played with us for 2 seasons and then went out onto the market and got himself a big-time contract with the St. Louis Blues. And then, of course, last year, Kevin Lankinen got that extension with the Vancouver Canucks. Now, the question is, are we going to see it again, and could it very well be Jack Roslovic? We're going to go over an article from the fine folks over at the Daily Hive, written in particular by Locked On Canucks' Trevor Beggs. But before we do that, I want to give a quick shout out and thank you to my sponsor, Gassy Jack Art, maker of this amazing artwork you see there behind me. And you guys can check him out yourselves at gassjackart.com. You guys can also find him on Instagram at gassjackart. There's a link to his website in the description down below. So without any further ado, let's go ahead and check out this article from Trevor Beggs. And he goes on to say, the Vancouver Canucks might not be out on Jack Roslovic after all. Now, as what we just mentioned, previous to this, Patrick Allvin loves making a splash late in the offseason. Last September, the Vancouver Canucks signed Kevin Lankinen to a 1-year deal worth $875,000. The year prior, Allvin signed Pius Suter to a 2-year contract worth $1.6 million per season. Both Lankinen and Suter were difference makers for the Canucks and have since signed lucrative deals. Could history repeat itself here in 2025? Jack Roslovic, the top remaining unrestricted free agent, remains unsigned with training camps across the NHL set to open next week. NHL insider Frank Seravalli provided an update on the Roslovic situation earlier this week and name-checked the Canucks. And this is a quote from Frank Seravalli. He goes on to say, obviously this has taken way longer than the Roslovic camp had anticipated. I think the Vancouver Canucks have been monitoring this situation pretty closely. Seravalli and Sportsnet's Elliot Friedman have also reported that the Toronto Maple Leafs are still in the hunt for Roslovic's services, with Friedman suggesting that the Maple Leafs could view him as a first-line winger. Although it was reported a few weeks ago that the Canucks' interest in Roslovic had cooled, as we showed you with that tweet, things can change quickly. It also makes sense why the Canucks would still want to pursue the 28-year-old. The Canucks struggled to score last season, ranking 23rd league-wide in terms of goals scored They were even more dreadful at actually shooting the puck, finishing with the second fewest shots on goal in the entire league. Roslovic scored 22 goals last season. That total would have placed him fourth on the Canucks, behind only Jake DeBrusk, Brock Besser, and Pius Suter. The Columbus, Ohio native registered 6.98 shots on net per 60 at even strength last season. Only Filipino and Connor Garland fired pucks on net at a higher rate among Canucks skaters in 2024-25. So that is the article. So it looks like the Canucks might not be out on Jack Roslovic. Don't be surprised if maybe they just do what like they did with Pius Suter 2 seasons ago. Maybe sign him to a 2-year 1.6, or maybe something around that area, or who. I mean, I don't think they're gonna sign Roslovic to anything under $1 million, like what they did with Kevin Lankinen last season. Could they even maybe do a 3-year deal? But still, I know a lot of Canucks fans are kind of soured on the whole idea of bringing in Jack Roslovic, as after all, some people will argue that he's not even really a center and hasn't played center in several years. And lately, or at least for most of his tenure with the Carolina Hurricanes, he's been a winger. My whole argument with the whole him, quote unquote, having played center in the last several years, and he might not be viewed as a second line center per se. If you really think about it, Carolina is pretty stacked down the middle. I mean, you have Sebastian Aho, you have Jesperi Kotkaniemi, and obviously, those two spots are not going anywhere. Aho and Kotkaniemi. I know Vancouver fans have a little stingy relationship when it comes to Kotkaniemi because of all those trade rumors and stuff about him potentially coming to Vancouver. I'll admit I was one of the ones who were like, no, we don't want Kotkaniemi. But if you really think about it, that would put Roslovic third on the depth chart when it comes to the middle. And, if you want him, in your top 6, he has to play on the wing. So that is my whole little argument with the whole, he hasn't played center. It's like, well, he hasn't really been given the opportunity to play center in Carolina. Perhaps he could get that opportunity here in Vancouver. So, let's actually take a look at this article that talks about, what we talked about, earlier about, saying, Canucks had cooled. This one is also from the Daily Hive as well. This one is dated a couple hours after that Thomas Drance tweet. So I'm just going to go through a couple things. I'm not going to read the entire thing, but it even goes on to say, as we mentioned, according to Drance, the Canucks don't view Roslovic or anyone remaining on their free agent market, for that matter, as the answer when it comes to addressing their center depth. We mentioned, they more likely want to address the issue by a trade, though Drance notes that they may have to wait until closer to Canadian Thanksgiving, which is a little over a month away. It seems that at this time, the Canucks are banking on prospect Aatu Räty to step up and become a regular down the middle this coming season. The 22-year-old took a big step in the AHL in 24-25, scoring 17 goals and 40 points in just 43 games. He also suited up for 33 games with the Canucks, where he managed 7 goals and 11 points. There's no denying Roslovic's offensive talent, but some view him as a better winger than a center. You could still make the argument that he would work as a stopgap for the next year or two. Without Roslovic, the Canucks are not only hoping Räty can make the jump, but are banking on Chytil staying healthy. Chytil, 25, has a well-documented history of concussion issues. While it remains to be seen whether or not the Canucks can find a trading partner ahead of the 25-26 season, it appears as though they will not be looking to solve their center issue via free agency. Once again, this was from the 19th of August, and then, literally just under a month later, things seem to have changed. So there's that. And I just want to know what you guys think. What are your guys' thoughts on this? Do you guys think, after all, the Canucks could still potentially go out there and sign Jack Roslovic? I mean, I'll admit, I'm a little surprised that he's still not signed. I mean, I really think that, as what was mentioned in the article, Roslovic's camp, was not expecting it to take this long. Perhaps they were playing a little too much hardball when it comes to an offer, and teams may not have just been that interested or willing to, give him a long-term deal or a, $3 to $4 million deal. But as I mentioned, I want to know what you guys think in the comment section down below. Let me know. And as always, if you guys like this video, be sure to hit that like button. And if you want to stay up to date on all your Vancouver Canucks content, be sure to smash that subscribe button and turn on your notifications so you don't miss a single video. You can find us on social media, as you can see there, Facebook, Instagram, X, TikTok. Feel free to give us a follow on all of our social media platforms. And if you prefer an audio version of this podcast, you can find us on both Spotify and Apple Podcast. On Spotify, feel free to give us a follow, as well as rate and review, as it is, of course, greatly appreciated, and it really helps out the podcast. But that's going to do it for me. As always, let's go Canucks, and I'll see you guys in the next video.